So, I know I've been talking about some very popular works of fiction as of late, but I wanted to take a break from the more recognizable classics and beloved works to talk about something that I've read recently and I have very quickly fallen in love with. Um, at its time, Mary Stewart's Merlin trilogy and her Arthurian series as a whole was the big thing and was instrumental in inspiring fantasy and historical fiction around the world, including the A Song of Ice and Fire series. Of that, I have no doubt. Um, and I think it's been fairly forgotten in recent years. People don't talk about it very much, if at all, and that is a crime because it is so good. Um, so I guess without further ado, allow me to talk about my first time reading Mary Stewart's The Crystal Cave. So The Crystal Cave is book one in the Merlin trilogy, following the great magician himself from boyhood all the way to his death. But we'll get to that. Right away, I was struck by Lady Stewart's prose. She is, to put it frankly, an incredible author. While she lives up to that very old school British sentiment, this depth and exposition, and she really wants you to live right in the middle of the scene, whatever it is. She wants you to feel everything around you. But unlike authors like J.R. Tolkien, say, or even more modern ones like Cornwell or Martin, Mary Stewart uses this very, I don't want to say simple. It's more sensible prose. It's I don't think she was very interested in using these very high dollar words just for the fun of it, at least, like some authors do. And there's this sense of knowing she knows exactly what she wants to say, and she's going to say it in whatever words are available and make sense at the time. There's an elegance to it, and it shines, especially in the early chapters when taken from a child's point of view. I think that she definitely designs the chapters to sort of reflect the worldview of Merlin at the time. Um, and we're introduced to this young Merlin, right? Or Mirden Imris, as he's called. Merlin has many names, and he'll receive many names as the story goes on. But he is in her interpretation, he is the bastard son of a Welsh princess, growing up in a castle where he's sort of treated like an outcast. Merlin is small, right? He can't really defend himself all that well, so he's picked on and made fun of for not having a father, right? No one knows who his father is. She won't say. And Merlin, our Merlin, he likes books, right? And he's sneaky. He hides in the castle walls, right? And he learns very quickly how to trick his way out of trouble, right? And uh, I think maybe Stewart changes her mind a little bit later on in the series regarding how she wants to present magic, because starting out, we're not entirely certain if Merlin actually has magic or not. My original theory, right? Because supposedly he can like see the future and he has the power of prophecy. But my original theory had been, at least the way she was describing it at first, it was almost like he had seizures or epilepsy or something similar that everyone prescribed as visions, some sort of mental illness perhaps. But later on, I think we're supposed to believe that it is actually magic, and it sort of changes to fit the mold that Stewart requires. It's still good. Don't get me wrong. It's just a little odd. Merlin is tutored by this old hermit who he finds living in a cave not far from his family home. And there he learns magic, right? And he learns the ability to look into the flames and see the future, and he sees things far away, and he learns herb lore and studies animals and all this stuff. And he uses his abilities to dodge assassination attempts made by his evil uncle and to avoid capture when things finally go awry and his family home is put in jeopardy. This he learns via the titular Crystal Cave, which Mary Stewart interprets as this like inner sanctum full of actual crystal. It's an actual crystal cave, right? Where if you light a candle or a torch or whatever, the light will fill the space and create this very eerie strobe effect and sort of triggers the kids' psychic abilities, right? So Merlin, he gets the heck out of there once he finds out about everything going all war-ish, right? Then he gets picked up by these sort of hired sellsword types who take him across the sea to meet with Ambrosius Aurelius, the historical figure, the pseudo historical figure, this exiled prince who is plotting his invasion of England and the overthrow of the tyrant Vortigern. Yeah, Stewart sat down with like a million history books and basically boiled down all the cool characters and concepts into one story, and I freaking love it because that's the thing about when you're dealing with King Arthur and that sort of mythos is it's not going to be quite historically accurate. It can't be because we don't know anything about King Arthur really, and that's fine because it's a good story, right? And obviously it's a work of fiction. I would be mad if she was just making up events in history that never happened, right? I would be upset about that. But no, she's basing it on Arthurian legend, and they're always up for interpretation. So, yeah, you can't really win. So you might as well tell the story that you like best. So Stewart chose the story of Ambrosius, brother of Uther Pendragon and father of Merlin. It is soon revealed, and Ambrosius, who is the future High King. See, with the help of his long lost son, the psychic magician that he is, uh, Ambrosius moves from his base in Les Britain, crosses the narrow sea, and he takes over. He removes the tyrant Vortigern, and he promptly beats back a nasty infestation of Angles and Saxons. There's a great scene, by the way, where Merlin is briefly captured by Vortigern and is going to be sacrificed to appease the gods as this castle that Vortigern is building keeps crumbling, and he thinks it's some sort of curse. But Merlin figures out that the castle is falling apart because they're building on a hill, which is actually kind of hollow and full of like underground water and such. He's an engineer, and he can put together how it all works, and he makes and congrats to Mary Stewart for making it all make sense, because it comes across as making sense. I'm not sure if it does to actual engineers or whatever, but yeah, oh, um, but see, Merlin, he plays into the superstitions of Vortigern, and he starts rambling on about dragons fighting at the base of the castle. Remember that old Merlin legend, right? The old famous Welsh myth. Yeah, he starts rambling about all this stuff, and he even has a vision about the red dragon and the bear and the great sword and all that. And it's pretty wild. It's very cool. Although it does still sort of hint to him like having blackouts and weird, not quite knowing what he's doing, possibly some sort of mental illness. I'm not sure. It sort of gets dropped later on. Um, it might be a loose thread. I don't know. But it's still great to witness, and it's that magic that sort of borders not really being magic as well. It's very very good and well done still. Um, and even later, once Merlin is rescued and Vortigern is deposed, Merlin, on behest of Ambrosius, rebuilds Stonehenge, and not with magic, right? But using his skills as an engineer, and he works such wonders that everyone says it's magic. And then Ambrosius falls ill, actually, and we're treated to the rise of his brother Uther, right? Merlin doesn't want the throne, right? He has no desire for it, and so Uther takes over, and we are introduced to the love story of that is Uther and Igraine, right? You all know that story, right? Uther falls in love with a married woman, Igraine of Cornwall, and Merlin changes Uther to look like her husband so that he can sleep with her, yada yada yada, right? But Stewart depicts this as a consensual romance, which is thank God, and she explains how Merlin, being a master of disguise, was able to smuggle Uther into the castle, disguised as the Duke of Cornwall. But Igraine is well aware of this and is in on it. She's in on the little ruse they're playing, and she wants to be with Uther. That's the nice touch there, and it's pretty much how the story ends too, with Uther aided by Merlin, sleeping with Igraine and getting her pregnant with Arthur, right? Who Merlin knows by his prophecy, by magic, that Arthur will be the future king of all Britain, right? It's a great way to end the story. And maybe that's the point. It's confirming Merlin's power, Merlin's magic to a certain extent, that he's able to see a future that we know is coming because we know the myth, right? And it has sort of a bittersweet element to it, as news arrives soon after of the Duke of Cornwall's death, and they didn't need to use deception, right? They could have waited, right? Uther could have waited and married Igraine when the time was right, and not sired a bastard. And Uther blames Merlin for not having seen this, right? For not being able to foretell the death of the Duke of Cornwall. And so Uther, he wants nothing to do with the child. He wants nothing to do with Merlin. Mind you, this is Uther Pendragon portrayed in his most flattering light, but I digress. Uh, so the plan is made for Merlin to take the child and keep him safe. And while that's the end of the Crystal Cave, it is just the beginning of the incredible Arthurian series, which I cannot recommend highly enough. Just to read, let alone like you don't even have to like it. I think it's worth reading as a work of history and of inspiration, if nothing else. I personally love it, as it's written by a British noblewoman who is a veritable master of her craft, who loves the history of it and has really dedicated herself to telling the most interesting story possible. And it's great. And I definitely think you should read it. And everyone should remember it. Yeah, it's great. Bye.